I have a pretty heavy topic to talk about today, and one that I have no doubt will be a little controversial and polarizing for those that aren't willing to be a little bit more open-minded and hear out some of the history as well as the background as to how specific associations got put onto black metal and why those are a little misguided more often than they aren't. Since the dawn of black metal, or just metal in general, there has been kind of this classical association of Satanistic tendencies. You are a Satanist, you are a devil worshiper, which that has been tossed around anytime something newfangled comes around and shocks all the older people. I'm just kind of generalizing here, but that usually is what it amounts to. You saw it with rock and roll, you saw it with the Chuck Berrys, the Elvises, even the Michael Jacksons. Anytime there is something new that comes around and represents some sort of counterculture that goes against the grain, it's automatically going to kind of be lumped in with something else that people want to say is evil, is bad, just because they don't want to take the time to understand it. And there's been no bigger genre in the entirety of heavy metal that has gotten the label of Satanistic more than black metal. And at face value, it's not really hard to see why this is. One of the biggest things that came from black metal, the Norwegian scene, were literal church burnings and so many things with imagery, visualizations, album covers, specifically lyrics, and just the interviews with the people themselves that really went against Christianity. So obviously, the first impression that people are going to assume is, well, if it doesn't really agree with Christianity and it's that adamantly against it, and you're actively putting this demonic imagery in your music, clearly you must be a Satanist, right? It's a little bit more nuanced and complex than that. And you gotta understand that I'm coming from a Christian perspective as someone who has loved and adopted black metal culturally from a significant standpoint, as well as loves the music devoutly. So take this as someone kind of reaching over the aisle. I don't really have any prejudice or bias one way or the other. And if anything, I would be part of the group that would outright point and say, yep, they're just satanic. A lot of the people that came from the early black metal scene were very young, rebellious, counterculture-laden little teenagers and early adults that wanted to go against something. They hated the establishment, they hated organized religion, and just point blank, they hated society as a whole. And so this little collective that they formed, this little echo chamber of sorts, was a way to express their freedom, to express themselves as people, and they really had this sort of ravenous rage towards the world. And the big thing that controlled a lot of the world throughout pretty much all of time was religion, specifically Christianity, if you're talking about where they came from in the world. Satan has always been used as sort of an allegorical sort of thing, and most of the time these people are not so much satanic as they are against organized religion just as a whole. Most of the time, and we'll get into this a bit later, they will be more pagan than anything, either having some sort of Celtic root or pagan root and adopt some sort of Scandinavian folk tradition. Just because you go against one thing doesn't outright mean that you are the opposite. And considering that these people were so against what they were being made to do and the establishment and government and organized religion, these acts of violence, of pretty much sacrilege and what a lot of people saw as blasphemous behavior that went against the orthodox of what was considered, I guess, just normal and acceptable, appropriate at the time. It was a way to sort of extend forward this idea of freedom and liberation from the chains that were controlling them that was religion, and the opposite of that was this fallen angel that went against God, that went against their religion, that went against all of the teachings. Satan represented the anti-Christian messaging, and so when you are going against Christianity, it's pretty obvious that either from an imagery perspective or a lyrical perspective, you are going to try to reflect the thing that is the most devoutly and outwardly against said thing that you are going up against, and in that case, it was Satanism. But a lot of times the people that believe in Satanism, specifically in the modern sphere, will usually be anti-religious as a whole, either erring on the side of agnosticism or just outright atheism, and more so use Satanism and a lot of the teachings of like an Anton LaVey as more of an allegorical explanation for how they view the world and the perspective of their existentialism and essentialism, oftentimes sort of overlapping with the occult or paganism or certain things that connect you to the Mother Earth and things that separate you from any sort of higher creator, and it's no less Christian or satanic than it is Jewish or Buddhist or Islamic. It just so happens that the heavy criticism of Christianity oftentimes takes the form of satanic things. Now, with that being said, I won't just give the benefit of the doubt fully. There are plenty of metal bands, not just black metal bands, just metal bands as a whole, that certainly do believe in Satanism as a religious thing. But there is a fine line between spiritualism and religious belief. Religious belief has to do with faith. It is putting your faith in a doctrine that specifically gives you a guideline or a higher power to worship, with specific guidelines to what the afterlife is going to be, what your karma is. Every single religion is going to approach things differently, but ultimately the main goal is the world exists for a reason. It was made by this person or that person and delivered by this prophet or this apostle or translated by this person, and you put your faith into that. Spirituality extends past religious nature. Every person that is religious is automatically spiritual, but not every person that is spiritual is outright religious, and that can be something that is a little difficult for some people to understand. Spirituality is more of an interconnection both to yourself and the world around you, and most of the time, if someone is religious, their spirituality is going to not only overlap, but literally be hand in hand with their creator, with their doctrine, with whatever their text is, just whatever makes them have that faith in the first place, and so the two are pretty much inseparable. But when you get someone that is agnostic or atheistic, they can oftentimes be spiritual in their own way, either practicing spirituality through meditation or something that they believe in the paranormal, the supernatural, the astrological, and so people will always sort of make their own answer for the world, even if it's not filtered through a religious lens. And a lot of people that say that all metal is satanic or all black metal is satanic is missing the fact that the people that are spiritual in their beliefs don't necessarily have to just be satanic, and even if they're putting that out there in their music, you have to kind of listen to who it's coming from and where they are putting that through. The devil is used as sort of a weapon, because the thing that a lot of people just fucking completely forget and just choose to ignore is that a lot of the people that are against Christianity and metal, specifically black metal, don't believe that Christianity exists. They don't believe that it's a thing. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in any fucking creator most of the time, unless they're into some sort of like pagan stuff. They don't believe in, the Buddhas and the Islamic prophets or like Hindu. They don't believe in anything. And so it takes the littlest bit of common sense. It's not rocket science that if they don't believe that God exists and that he didn't create the world and that Jesus didn't walk or wasn't a prophet or whatever it may be, they're clearly not going to believe that the antithesis of God, Satan, the devil, something that is not only directly connected to Christianity, but is the exact opposite, they're not going to believe that exists either. And so the allegorical components of it, that is where it comes in with their thematic elements, with their world philosophy. Because if you don't believe one thing exists, you can't believe something else exists. It's like saying, I don't believe that ice cream exists, but you know what I do believe exists? Chocolate ice cream. You have to have the starting building block, and if you outright curse upon and say that something does not exist, you're not really going to get that. Now, with that being said, there are people that believe in Christianity and actively choose to go against it because they don't believe in being told what to do, and they want freedom, and they see the devil as this symbol of freedom and liberation and not being controlled and given some sort of guideline in the world. But at the end of the day, those are most of the time pretty few and far between, and the vast majority of people that are heavily against organized religion in their music most of the time are erring much more on the side of agnosticism, of atheism, or pagan, or some sort of folk tradition, and so it's not outright just going against Christianity and becoming a Satanist. I hope this clarified some things from a religious perspective. Let me know what your guys' opinions are of this. If you disagree, that's fine. There is no wrong answer. Be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.